Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Hellbender Vinyl. For those of you that don't know, Hellbender is a vinyl record pressing plant located right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, doing high quality, professional, top of the line record pressing, baby. We finally got one here. There aren't very many in the world, let alone the country, and to have one right under our nose is an insane resource. So if you are a musician looking to get some stuff pressed to wax, I highly, highly recommend checking out the folks over at Hellbender. Tell them Sykes sent you. I've always wanted to say that. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Sit back, relax, and let's start the beats. Okay. As long as nothing explodes, I think we're cooking.
All right. And you go by Sykes, right?
Yeah, you can call me Sykes. You can call me Brian. You can call me Paul. Doesn't particularly matter.
Okay.
But for the context of keeping our listeners less confused, you could call me Brian or Sykes.
Okay.
Whatever you would like. Joey.
All right.
You go by Joey?
I go by Joey. People call me Joe. I tried to switch to Joe to be more professional a little bit. It never really takes. It always goes back to Joey.
Yeah. Okay, well, Joey, Brian, thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
I remember you were on the show a long time ago. I meant to actually look up what date that was. Do you remember off the top of your head what year that was?
It was very early in Start the Beat.
Yeah. And it was definitely like pre-COVID. It was probably like 2017, 2018 or something like that. So almost, I don't know. I know I've certainly lived several different lives since then, and I imagine you have as well in many different ways. It's a much different world since then. We're much different people, much different things going on. But with all of that being said, Joey Molinaro is in the building. Make some noise for the internet. Woo! And for anyone that doesn't know you, Joey, you are a Jack or a Joey of many trades, I suppose one could say.
Trades, yes.
A musician, a writer, a teacher, a human being on this crazy planet, all sorts of things. I believe today we are going to maybe be focusing on some book writings that you've been doing, but I imagine we'll get into a broader conversation about intention and the exploration of the creative mind and why do we do all of these things that we do, you know? Why contribute more art to a world that's already dense with creativity?
Yes.
Because we have to. That's all we know how to do.
Yes, it is my faith.
Yes. So I will let you take the reins here and talk a bit to the this is the first time I've ever spoke to a human being. I'm sorry. Okay. We'll talk a bit about what do you want to start with here? Because there's so many things that we could talk about. And I know that you would hit me up and sent me some stuff about the books. So I imagine that's where we want to start. How do you want to guide that?
Well, I didn't think that cassettes and records were obsolete media enough. So I wanted to go one step more obsolete. But honestly, though, I had this manuscript that I wrote. I just, stole a bunch of copies from a previous employer. I professionally spent my own money to make these manuscripts. And I sold them on the merch table and people were very interested in them just instead of books or, I'm a solo artist. It feels weird to sell t-shirts. People tend to sell more t-shirts than recordings these days, but it feels weird to me. So the book made sense as merchandise, but first it made sense as a creative endeavor. So I am a touring musician, international touring musician, American touring musician. And for me as a touring artist, the way you travel has always been important to me, not just the machine, not just if it's like a vintage car or a motorcycle or buying train tickets or something. just the story of it. I've never been the kind of touring artist that like, you know, sleeps in Walmart parking lots and, you know, like for me, it's about living the life, experiencing the people, the connections, the spectacle. And it's sort of created this, just this narrative that I feel like I want people to know, you know, because, it's exciting, it's unbelievable, but particularly it's very much divorced from what mainstream people think touring looks like. You know, they think about the trashing hotel rooms, rock stardom illusion, or they think that, you know, you're just, sort of panhandling, which is, well, a little closer to the truth, but still like a lot of fun. It's a beautiful thing. And so, when I see one of those kind of rock star movies about how like, oh, these artists were struggling and, you know, this band that was playing dive bars back in the day and like the bar people weren't super interested and they weren't making money and they believed in themselves and they made it and now they matter. I'm like, well, what if they didn't make it? Would the music still matter? And so that's a narrative that's played out through a lot of my work, very both like with some concept album things I've done. With the previous podcast I did, I have a podcast. It's sort of a documentary of my first big European motorcycle tour. And it weaves in a lot of music and a lot of stories and anecdotes and, you know, a lot of like personal development and growth. I have only the first half of it done, the first 8 episodes. It's on Bandcamp, but I don't know. Someday I'll go back to it. But that was just sort of early me playing around with this concept of telling the untold story. And so my first book was exactly that. Was exactly telling this, trying to undermine the rock star story, trying to undermine this whole idea of, you know, we have our rock gods that, you know, made it and they rose above, and that's what matters. It's the stuff that doesn't rise above, or the fact that these rock stars that made it, I think would be doing the same thing if they were playing in dive bars. You know, the rockers who matter, I don't know, I think they would still be doing it if they were famous or not.
Yeah. I think the concept of creating these almost alternate histories is brilliant because as a reader, it automatically makes you like care about the character because in your brain you already have some perspective of what this person is supposed to be versus it
Yeah.
just being a totally fictional character.
Yeah.
You know, it just like it it messes with your brain in a way that also it makes you like unintentionally or without even thinking about it, like you're paying more attention to the narrative
Yeah.
because you know the reality, but you're reading an alternate history of it. And you're
Yeah.
like, wait, what? And then it makes you think more about like, what if this is what really happened? What if this person never made it? What if this person was an addict? What if this person had a bunch of children that nobody knew about? Or what
Uh-huh.
if this person, anything, you
Yeah.
know?
I'm threatening the reader with a world in which Neil Young never shares his songs. You know, you ought to be invested.
hmm So with this story and this narrative, you know, obviously you have a background and I guess like I imagine we're probably about the same age. I'm in my late 30s. We are victims of pop culture.
Uh-huh.
You know, we grew up in it whether we wanted to or not. And I think it shaped me in a lot of ways, and as I've gotten older, I have like a lot of resentment for it, even though a lot of the stuff I grew up with, I love, and it made me who I am. But I find it so like, I don't know, like things like Star Wars or something like these big, it's just like, why are we still talking about this? Why does this still exist? I'm in my brain, I get it, but it's like, why not anything new? Why do we hold it's just it feels so gross in a lot of ways, and it's fun to dive into a world where maybe pop culture or rock and roll culture didn't become what it is now,
Yeah.
because it's been ruined in a lot of ways. Like, what the fuck is counterculture anymore? I have no idea. I know it still exists, but it's kind of weird being in like a shopping mall and seeing, band t-shirts in every single retail store and all of this. Like, I just don't understand. Like, it's been co-opted so much. I know I'm talking about like a thousand different things, but I don't know. I just like the idea of an alternate history. I almost prefer to like live in that world. Sometimes it feels.
Yeah. I mean, I had a couple experiences before uh before I really started touring in earnest, uh where I really got a keen distaste for the influence of pop culture on young musicians and young artists. Um I mean, other than my own experience growing up, I just kind of inherently was like this bullshit. It was so big and imposing, and when I talk about my second book, I'll mention and he's thinking about giving it up. He's thinking about giving up music. He never made it, and he's just languishing in a small town. He didn't couldn't hack it in L.A. or San Francisco. He's in Sacramento. His best friend's Jerry Garcia, who's just kind of like slinging weed to college kids, and and they're just living this small town life, and kind of playing some gigs. They're kind of in the scene a little bit, but they're in their 30s now. You got to grow up. He's gonna take a promotion at work and move to like Las Vegas or Reno or someplace where there's no scene, and he's ready for it. He wants to give it up. He's got bedroom tapes full of all Neil Young songs. No one's ever heard them. He just plays them in his bedroom. Um, and then he gets this opportunity to go on a tour, like sort of a last minute, unexpected DIY tour. And the tour I send him on, it's not even like the good stuff. It's not even like the stuff that's in my own biographical podcast, where like there's like you would never believe this crazy French warehouse rave, like crazy stuff. It's kind of a normal DIY tour that I send him on. And things kind of fall apart here and there, and some things are unglamorous and some things are rough. Um, but there's so much beauty in it, and he finds meaning in it. And so yeah, at the end, it doesn't have that rock star thing. He doesn't get the big contract. But he goes home inspired and committed to the music, or he doesn't. Maybe he dies tragically. We don't know, because you have to read the book to find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the other one, this is the one where I mentioned earlier. I alluded to like the great spectacular pop star of the '90s is Britney Spears. It's a book called Young Nuns. It's about a Midwest metalcore band, and around like 2000s, when they released the iPhone in 2007, it creates a zombie apocalypse. So that it's this alternate history, relatively plausible, let's be honest, that
Sure.
the release of the iPhone results in a zombie apocalypse. And so this metalcore band is like, holed up in a suburban enclave, and they're the bassist's girlfriend's dad's cul-de-sac, McMansion. The band's living there, just kind of spinning their wheels, like, working for the guy, trying to keep their community together, but they're unhappy and it's rough. And they go on a raid and they discover in an elite like celebrity rehab clinic that they didn't know about. It's like a secret rehab clinic in Ohio. That's where they discover Britney Spears. She'd somehow been holed up there this whole time, because in 2007 that was when she had her famous breakdown. And so she went there. Anyway, the whole apocalypse happened. She didn't really even know about it. And so now it's this situation where you've got this, and if you participated in like 2000s hardcore or 2000s metalcore, like you see like in some ways, that like legitimate, like commercial pop culture criticism of the punks against the commercial product, which is fair, but also like wild misogyny, which Britney has always been a lightning rod for. And so the guys have that, and then, Brittany has her whole thing going on that sent her to the clinic in the first place. They get together, they kind of work through it and decide to go on a tour. They don't even know if anyone's alive out there, but they load up the van and go on a big tour west to play gigs with Brittany as their singer, and to find her kids, but also to develop as characters and kill a lot of zombies. So these are two different books. I'm not planning to continue writing about celebrities. That's not particularly my obsession. Technology is more the common thread through my writing. I have another manuscript in already for a third novel, and then I have a whole fantasy trilogy that's going to be right behind that. Technology is the common thread. But the first two books, yeah, I play around with a lot of this celebrity commercial stuff.
Yeah, I think it's great. And you know, I find that the idea of going back to talking about teaching kids and having their family be like, oh, maybe you'll be on American Idol one day or something. It's just like there's this brain rot across, even it goes outside of art, where it's just like for some reason there's just like multiple generations of people now that just cannot be thankful for what they have. It's like you always got to have more, consume more. What's next? Got to get to the next level, I don't know how many times you've met somebody outside of this bubble that we operate in where you might talk about what you do and they're like, oh, how much do you make doing that? It's like, why? It's like, I'm telling you about just something that I do because I love doing it and it's my life. Why are you worried about the number attached to it? It's almost as if like they need to know that they make more money than me doing what they do, so they don't have to feel bad about their life, because like I'm in like a position where it's like I'm happy doing what I do, and like sure, my finances, I'm barely keeping it together. We're working through it, but money's not real. Fuck your taxes. Fuck all that stuff. It's tax season. Fuck them. But it's just like, it's just like, I just want to make cool art. And piggybacking off another thing that you said that really like annoys me is like whenever like celebrities start to come into the like DIY sort of space, starting to do things where it's like, oh, I'm going to be a part of this now. Even going back to something like a podcast, right? Where like this type of a format is something that was made for the underground, for people in the underground to communicate with each other, to uplift voices that aren't being platformed by the mainstream. But now every fucking celebrity has a goddamn podcast or a goddamn Instagram account. And there's no place for like underground creators to be themselves because celebrity has to fucking bogart everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do we exist?
Well, this is, I mean, in my first novel in Heart of Gold, that's sort of the point of divergence from the alternate history. Is I invented just some technology. It's called a terse span, which is actually, it's like a anagram. Is that the right word? It's like reshuffling of letters. Is that an anagram?
I
It's
think
one of
so,
those. It's
yeah.
that thing of Napster. But what it is, it's like a tape machine. It takes like a floppy, like the little square floppy disks.
Mhm.
Like you take that and you put it in the machine and it plays, and it's not great quality. But you can take another disc and put it right on top and pull a lever, and it makes like an instant copy. So imagine if that came out in like 1960, that everyone had these machines that you could just like instantly like just be like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Now you have 3 copies of an album, like what that would do to the music industry. So that's why my alternate history is what it is in Heart of Gold, is because I decimated the music industry. There was no industry to support these guys. And I think, I mean, another factor that the mainstream doesn't recognize about DIY or underground versus commercialism, is that there's not a path anymore. You don't like start as a local band, do some regional tours, get on a regional label, get some attention, and then some national label rolls the dice and is like, I'll give him a shot, and you work really hard, and there's no progression for that anymore. And the illusion of that, I think, is really harmful. Which is, yeah, that's I think, um, I mean, I don't see that often the people coming from the top who like, humble themselves to, and the ones that do, your Jack Whites or your what's the Flaming Lips guy?
Wayne Coyne.
Yeah, or who else? I don't know who's doing it now because I don't pay attention. But it used to be like Andrew WK used to do that kind of stuff. Anyway, I don't see enough of that for that to bother me. And but the thing you said about the influencers, my third novel that's coming out. I don't want to say too much about it because I still have to revise and edit the crap out of it. But in this world that I create, it's a sci-fi. It's set in very recently. It's in like 2040, so it's coming up, and it's a guy who's a little older than us, who grew up in Butler, Pennsylvania, and then ran away from high school to meet some like Pittsburgh punks and travel with them to the Seattle WTO protests in '99. Like the battle for Seattle, like the first big black bloc protest. One of the most effective protests in recent history. But now he's like in his late 50s, and he's in this world where the only middle class job you can get is to be an influencer. That's the only thing you can do. Like everyone else is either a billionaire or is in an incarcerated colony. Anyway, so that's called Year Zero. That's gonna be coming out in I'm hoping to release it around like the Christmas season this year.
That's awesome. So whenever you are putting together like a book, seems like an insane undertaking in terms of the scope of it, right? I what is like your process just for putting together a story? That's probably an incredibly vague question, but like, do you have a threshold in mind for like how long it needs to be or how short it needs to be? Do you just let it happen as it happens? Like I guess like my brain is so, the way I tend to think about things sometimes is like I need to have every step in place, and like that seems like just such a big thing. But I guess also too, if I could compare it to like maybe like, oh, I'm writing an album. I have a conceptual narrative for an entire album that spans 10, 12, 15 songs, right? It's like each of those songs could be chapters in a story that would make up a book. So I guess it makes more sense in that way. But just thinking about like character names and describing scenery and just painting a picture with only words just
Mhm.
seems, I don't know, fun but crazy.
Well, I mean, many writers suffer and struggle to just get it done, just to get words on the page, to come up with an ending. And I don't know if I can say that I'm a good writer, but I know that 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 part's easy for me. So that tells me I should keep doing it.
Sure.
Um, Heart of Gold, I actually originally conceived as a film, as like a low budget, no budget film. I had this idea about, you know, the this main character, this kind of like balding 30-year-old like dude in California. Like someone stole a early camcorder in like the 80s or whatever when they first came out. At one point I looked up what year that happened. But let's say it was 1980. Someone stole one from like the university they work for. They're like, "Oh, there was just like it was in the inventory and I just wrote, here you go, like happy birthday." And here's a so you know, this dude kind of goes around to some underground stuff and records some stuff on the camcorder and maybe some like just hanging out with friends and then maybe just sitting on the beach playing a song and then he goes on, you know, and takes it with them on tour. And so I was imagining watching this VHS of these little snippets of life in this underground, and uh, in the process, seeing like, you know, seeing the Beatles play in someone's living room because, like, you know, Yoko's a professor and they just have some friends together and have some wine, and people are like laughing and carrying it on in the other room, and like someone's like heckling Paul and he's like, fuck you, you know? And, you know, same like Black Sabbath is like playing in a shitty dive bar and, you know, they're all kind of like working in pizza places or whatever. I was initially seeing that as a movie, and I got the idea to do it as a book during the pandemic because no one had anything better to do. But also it just, yeah, it just occurred to me that I could tell the story a different way. Um, and so that I'd already kind of seen the framework in my head, and then eventually I adapted the main character into Neil Young. But I saw that as a movie, so I sort of saw it. But both of the books that I'm releasing in June, Young Nuns and Heart of Gold, these follow like it's a very simple framework to be like set up for the tour. Then you go on the tour, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chapter, 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 city, city, city. Like each city kind of has this development and this characteristic and this flavor. So when you see it as like the build up to the tour and then the tour, it's a pretty simple framework.
Yeah. With your, with all of this stuff that you're doing, all of these metaphorical hats that we spoke about in the beginning of the conversation, do you find that you're somebody that can like work on multiple different things at once, or do you kind of have to focus on one thing at a time? Like just focus on the books and I'm not focusing as much on like writing music or playing shows, or do you find yourself still juggling a lot of different things?
I do a lot of juggling.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I manage. I don't love it, but it's like, you know, I'm booking my summer tour now, which is like about 50% there, maybe a little bit more. That has to happen, like, this week. I have to finish that this week. Like, you know, the longer you wait, then, you know, the harder it is to get the gigs. I also have to, finish, sending all of my, like, word processed, documents to the publisher. That has to happen this week. I'm also renovating my fiance's house, and, like, the house is all torn up. That has to be finished this week. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I have some sort of Yeah, when I have a deadline or I set myself up for it, I find a way to make it happen, and probably compromise things that shouldn't be compromised, but, I figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in a very, very similar boat where I am in a tornado right now as we currently sit here.
Uh,
Having just there's so much going on, but it's like it's all for the most part, I'd say like 90% of it is all self-imposed.
uh-huh,
And it's like, what is it about me that or my drive that is just like, why can't I not say no to myself? I know sometimes it can be difficult to say no to other people because you
uh-huh,
might want to show up for them or you feel obligated, but like I just have this like insane obligation to myself. I don't know if you can relate with that at all. But it's really, really exhausting. But it happens. I don't know. I do it. I make it work, and here we are. We're just doing our best to put like my band just put out an album today. And it was like last night, it was like this album that we spent, a couple of years probably in total, like getting this whole thing together. And now it's like, well, here it is.
well,
I hope you listen to
congratulations.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
great.
thank you.
Tell me about I'm interviewing you now. Tell me about the album.
The album is I have a couple different musical things that I do, but this band is it's my band Normal Creatures, and we put out an album called Fluorescent Black. It's a kind of a story of self-discovery, finding yourself amidst the chaos of the world. I like to think of all of the tracks as uh like basically like looking in like different doorways or different mirrors and like seeing different reflections of yourself throughout the course of time. And it's really cool. It's a cool record. We put a lot of work into it. I'm really excited about it. Think it sounds great. Think it looks great. And it's just weird now because it's like
Uh-huh,
this thing that's been like in my head forever, right? This
mhm,
piece of work that I've been spent years on, right? And I'm sure you've spent a lot of time on things that you have done.
mhm.
And now you put it out there and it's just like, well, I hope somebody will at least read this once, or I hope
Yeah,
somebody will listen to these songs once, and nobody will ever know like how much went into it or feel what I feel, because it's
mhm,
like they're not going to get the experience. But it's just so weird to put something out there,
yeah,
and then now it's like, okay, now what? How are people gonna receive it? How
yeah,
do I get people to hear it?
uh-huh,
How do you get people to read your book? You got to get online and email people that talk about things or put stuff out to your communities, and it's just like very exhausting.
mhm,
The whole like promotional side of things, the business side of things, I've never been good at it. I've never been interested in it.
mhm,
I spent my entire life just making art. I didn't like go to business school, or I don't know anything about money. I don't know anything. I just know about making stuff.
yeah.
But nowadays, like, you kind of have to have that other stuff too. You have to know about the other stuff. How does Joey Molinaro function in a modern day society when it comes to sharing your art with the world?
S
Do you just kind of just put it out and let whatever happens happen?
I do it the same way musicians have always done it. I travel. It's not the best way. It can be really rough. Just hitting the road, and as long as you get the gig and you perform, and people will listen. but that's always been something I've liked about it here. But this is something, how many self-published authors are there out there? Like tens, hundreds of thousands. But just going on the Reddit group and posting a link isn't going to do so well. Whereas I'm optimistic that if I get out there and I play gigs and I book, I'm looking to do in stores readings in bookstores. If I'm out there, just thumping the books, then people will pay attention. And then ideally, when I put out my next book, I won't have to travel so much. They'll
Sure.
just buy it.
Sure. Yeah, I do believe wholeheartedly as well that the best way to get your work out there, regardless of whatever your medium is to actually get it in front of people and just like use any of the internet adjacent sort of things as like it's a nice thing to have on the side, but it's so easy now to trick yourself into thinking that you could do it all on there because for better or worse, there have been plenty of people in the past decade or so that have just blown up online, but that's a very small demographic when you look at the total numbers of the amount of people that are trying to do creative things.
Hmm.
Something that I find really interesting being like a DIY musician these days is like, what do you really need to do as a DIY musician that is relevant today? I think a lot of artists get caught up in doing things that I don't think is even that important anymore. Like recording a music video. Like, unless you just want to have like a fun day with your friends, like what are we really, is it worth spending a ton of money to produce these music videos just to like put on your Instagram as a band? I don't
Yeah.
know if it's really worth it. I mean, when MTV was a thing and you had labels paying for these things and a way to distribute it amongst millions of people, like, sure, that's a great commercial for your band. That's a great advertisement for your band. But these days it's just like, it just seems weird to me.
Yeah.
I could even go as far as saying like the idea of even like recording music is a little bit silly to some degree.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know. That's As somebody that likes recording music and records music for other people, that's a wild thing to say out loud. But it's
In
like,
this beautiful recording studio of yours.
but it's like, why? What are like if you think about like back in the day,
Uh-huh.
there was a time before the internet where it's like the purpose of recording this music was basically to just like document. It was just like documenting things and then also having something for like a radio to advertise your things. It was
Hmm.
all business. Um, People have certainly turned it into an art over the years, but nowadays it's just like, why if you're an underground band, why are you spending thousands and thousands of dollars on recording music and getting all of these videos in the hopes that just like some big label is going to be like, "Oh, you guys are great."
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just
Yeah.
not for me.
I play with all those things in Heart of Gold, because like I said, I decimated the music industry, and there are different aspects of those expectations that I play with, of people who are like, here's Neil, who's like playing these like fun, unusual gigs just because people are enthusiastic, and then someone else who's like, dumping their money into some pay to play thing because they think it's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, I think that also too, to kind of maybe like clarify my points. I think what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like the business of music and DIY, I think it's mainly an issue for me when I see bands trying to emulate that like MTV big band culture, try to like put a ton of money and effort into making themselves appear larger than they are, where I
Hmm.
feel like there would be much better effort in like, you know, putting that money into going out on the road, or
Hmm.
even just putting that money into like living a healthy life for yourself.
Uh-huh.
Don't dump every single, there's this romantic idea of like, I poured every single penny that I ever made into my work and I still have nothing. And it's like,
Uh-huh.
well, you could have maybe like poured in like 25% of that, still had some okay recordings and not be like, ugh, I'm
Yeah.
tortured.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the common thread through my writing is technology, and this is something that um, I've given a hard look at DIY and things that I really thought were, community or art or just, um, well, mostly community, and I've become critical of things that, you know, yes, we with the power of friendship, we built this network of love and music and art and punk, but sometimes when you really look at it, aren't we just humans coming together to center the technology itself? It's a bleak thing to say, and it's not always true, but I think this is a thing that we can easily fall into, is just playing this game that technology is setting out for us. And I don't know. That's maybe heavier than I want to lay out on Start the Beat podcast. Let's maybe pep it up a little bit.
No,
But
no.
I am very critical of technology, and I guess that would be the question that I would want to ask myself: is what I'm doing, is this the art that I want to create, the art that I want to share, the art that I want to express with the people I want to share it with, or am I just seeing this technology that wants to be manifested and being the sucker that manifests it?
Sure, sure. I feel that like everybody is so I feel like a lot of stuff, particularly for like DIY artists, centered around like social media and things like that, is like warping the way that we create things and why we create things. It's fucking up our intentions of why we create things. And there's a lot of my peers and friends that I see them doing things on social media that are like social media trends that, like, if this never existed, if the trends didn't exist, they wouldn't be doing this. And it's
Mhm.
like, what is the ultimate goal here? Are we trying to platform our voices and our identities, or are we just trying to get in line and follow what everybody else is doing just to hope that somebody pays attention to us?
Mhm.
And it's like, why do we even need this many people to pay attention to us?
Yeah.
How much do we need? How much does anybody need as a person? It's like we're trying to just like collect followers or something and use that as a threshold for like success or status. And it's just like, I don't know, like you can have all the followers in the world, but if your intentions are off, and if your art, like if you're not doing what you want to do, and you're just wearing this like Halloween costume, this mask of like the influencer, and you lose yourself in that, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Not to get too dark, I get it, but it's just like, this is the stuff I think about all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's tough because like I love what I do, and not a lot of people pay attention to what I do. And
Mhm.
like I'm okay with that. But sometimes it's easy to be like, am I okay with that? Shouldn't I have more?
Yeah.
You see other people that you may feel have like not worked as hard as you, and they get opportunities that you don't have, and it's hard to not feel somewhat bitter about that. But at least I'm aware of it, and I can try to put myself in check, where it's just like, hey, we all have different stories and different paths, and this is mine. This is
Yeah.
where I'm at. And you know what? It's cool. I still have a lot of great things that I'm very thankful for.
Yeah.
And what else? A lot of people don't have that. There's a lot of people that may have metaphorically more than me, or some sort of
Mhm.
a higher status, but they may not be happy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think one thing about in particular, the Pittsburgh punk scene, that I really admire, that I really latch on to is, like, so, well, for example, I booked a really cool gig it was a festival in Montreal, a couple years ago, and I was trying to book shows on the way there, and I was gonna ride on my Harley, and I couldn't get the gigs, and I was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna ride up with, like, my violin and, a tent and some camping gear, and I'm just gonna ride up old school biker style. I'm not gonna play gigs. I'm just gonna, like, ride till I can't ride anymore, and then find a park or a, some kind of abandoned forest, and I'll just sleep there like an outlaw, and I'll work my way up to Montreal and play this gig, and get like $120 or whatever I
Uh-huh.
got. Have this rock and roll blowout, and then do the same thing on the way back. Stop and get a tattoo just because why not? And like this is a in so many ways it's the antidote to being like, oh, I'm struggling this, or like going through the motions, that, or the self-doubt is like, when you show up at the punk gig in like a square body 1970s truck, and you pull your like, shitty speaker cab off that you like have to keep fixing yourself, and you roll up, like, if the means are if the journey is as exciting as the destination, then you really can't go wrong. And I think a lot of punks here do that right. um just the whole lifestyle is there's no like feeling of like, oh, I did all this sacrifice, and it's like, no, it's just, we're just doing punk shit kind of all day. And so yeah, you don't have that feeling of having to go through the motions, whether on social media or otherwise. I don't know. I identify with that.
Yeah, I find that like there's it's a conversation about intention and like why are you getting into doing why the fuck are we doing any of this to begin with? And like we probably both come from a time frame where it's like I was making art and making music long before social media was a thing. And like I didn't have any fucking friends outside of the other weirdos that I went to like middle school and high school with, and it was just like we just made stuff together and it was fun. And like I caught the bug then.
Hmm.
And like as I got older, it was just like, oh shit, like I could play a show. The idea of like I made music for years without even thinking I could play a show.
Uh-huh.
Just like because I mean, for one, I was like fucking like 14, but also it's like by the time I was like, I didn't even like start playing shows until maybe like 18, 19. And then like even then it was still pre-social media and stuff like that. Small shows, and to me it was like the biggest thing in the world. But as I grew as a musician, all of these other things started to come into play. And now, we're decades removed from me being 15, and it's like there are people now that are 15. There's people now that are 20 that are making music, but for them social media has always been a thing.
Hmm.
And I can't imagine like what that is like. If it's like I'm starting to make music and I know that like, oh, I should also make a social media account for my page and I should get my stuff onto the streaming platforms and all this stuff, where it was like it was just so different. I remember like being like, I need to find somebody that has a CD burner so I could get my music onto a CD, and I have to like slide it in the mailbox at Garfield Artworks so maybe Manny will call me and put me on a show.
Uh-huh.
And it's so different now. I'm not trying to like romanticize the past. It's just like I feel like the access of it, or like the intention, has to be different in some ways for people now, where it's like, oh, like what you're supposed to do is have this online presence and do all of these online things.
Hmm.
Whereas for like me or maybe you, it's like it's easier to separate it because we've had like almost a life being an artist before that was ever a thing.
Hmm.
But now it is a thing. And I mean, it's great. I mean, I'm doing a podcast. We're here on the internet. There's plenty of great things for the internet. I'm sure
Hmm.
a lot of you booking shows would be very complicated without the use of these resources. But the outside influence again of celebrity and people feeling like they need to be that or they're nothing is probably my least favorite thing about social media.
Hmm.
I don't think it should be legal for people that make a certain amount of money to have social media accounts.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I'm just being silly, or at least just like it's just different. I don't know, all the advertising and things. It's just warping. But that's a
I think
wormhole.
so, yeah.
That's a
Well, I
wormhole.
mean, I'm from a family of musicians. My dad's a professional musician and a music teacher. My brother, professional musician, music teacher. And we grew up, my brother and I were, in a punk band. When I was 12, I played a gig in Lawrenceville at Cool Pepper's Hot House in 1999.
Hell yeah.
And it's so, you know, we had a concept of like being a professional musician. You know, he was working, he was running a wedding gig band and also playing as a professional violinist. And so I kind of grew up with that mindset and pursued music from that angle, while also, yeah, playing punk with me and my brother. I keep saying punk. It was ska punk, and
That's fine.
so it's
It's
fine.
still
It's
punk.
fine. It is fine.
Yeah.
Thank you for the affirmation. It's fine. Um, but now my brother has a son who's 21, and he's playing in bands, and um yeah, I think we don't follow each other online. I think he has an Instagram. He's allowed to follow me if he's watching this. He's allowed to follow me. He didn't think he was allowed. It's fine. I don't know, but we don't know each other like that, is what I'm saying. I don't
Yeah.
follow his social media. I don't know what he's doing on social media, but in person, what he's doing, playing in bands and photographing bands and just, going to gigs and everything, doesn't look a whole lot different from what I used to do. But again, that's because maybe he grew up with that concept of what kind of musician he wanted to be. So I don't know if that's a objective perspective on the youth of today, but I know that it can be done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I go to a lot of shows. If I'm not playing a show, if there's a show going on, I'll go out of my way to be there. And
Mhm.
like, it doesn't feel much different than it did when I was younger. When you're in the space, which is why, going back to that point, it's important to just get offline and go into those spaces, because the people that want to be there are there.
Mhm.
And it could be bigger. It could always be, there could be more people there. I think there's just still a lot of people that are comfortable online. Like, there's plenty of times in my life where somebody, for lack of a better term, we'll just call them like a normie, comes out to like a DIY show and they're like, whoa, this is cool. I didn't know this was a thing. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, it is a thing,
Yeah.
like, you don't have to go to these like big box Live Nation venues to experience live music.
Yeah.
There's plenty of really cool stuff. Honestly, like, in a lot of ways, more genuine, real stuff.
Mhm.
If you're somebody that is on the spectrum of not being aware of underground music, but you're having a hard time really relating to anything that's going on in the current zeitgeist of popular music, there's something out there for you. You
Mhm.
just got to go you got to go in a weird basement or a smoky bar or something to find it, but it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know how to access that stuff.
Yeah.
So like, bridging that gap of like getting people that aren't art freaks or whatever into a DIY space, because also too, I've had conversations with people that are not art people that are like, oh, that sounds cool, but like, I feel like I don't belong. And it's like, trust me, everybody will be happy that you're there.
Uh-huh.
It's always a very welcoming space for the
Yeah.
most part.
Yeah, it was heartening to see, like, after the pandemic, I had this, I was like, okay, nobody under 30 is ever gonna do anything DIY music anymore, because there was just nothing on my radar and there
Yeah.
was really nothing happening. But then, like, yeah, right around like 2022, all of a sudden I was seeing loads of shows happening at like, South Oakland, that's Oakland, Pittsburgh, Oakland, house venues and house shows and just like college kids and stuff. I don't go. There are very few things that I feel like I'm too old for.
Oh yeah.
I am too old to go to an Oakland house show. That's just, I'm sorry. I
No.
will be made to feel old and people don't want me there.
I remember a very distinctive moment. It was probably in like 2016 is when I played my last like Oakland house show.
Yeah.
And like, it was like, we got asked to play. We were playing with some friends of ours that were a younger band. And I was like, hell yeah, let's do this. This will be fun.
Uh-huh.
But then like, I didn't realize that, oh, like, I'm in a room with a bunch of like 19-year-olds drinking wine.
Yeah.
And like, hey, I was here at one point in time, and this is an important thing culturally for you.
Yeah.
But I I gotta go.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be here. This is I have aged out of this.
Yeah.
No shade, no disrespect,
Right.
but it's like I don't want to be the strange old dude
Yeah.
at the house show harshing the vibes.
I feel like I saw a lot of when some of those things were coming back. I heard a lot of people talking about how kids from that generation, and of course, if you go to like an arena show, it's always like this everywhere. Apparently, I don't really go to a lot of big shows, but yeah, everyone's recording it on their damn phone. I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all, but that's what everybody does. And I did hear that there were like a lot of house shows. There'd be like 30 kids in a basement, and all of them would be recording it on their phone the whole time. I don't like that, but I do like the fact that the shows are happening, and I'm sure that guy is there, the normie kid who's like, "Oh, I didn't know you could do this."
I mean, it's like the cell phone stuff I feel very 50-50 on, because ultimately, the intention is like people want to document where they're at because they think it's cool.
Uh-huh.
If they weren't having a good time, they wouldn't be filming it. So it's like, okay, well, they're having fun in their own way. I don't resonate with this, but I also shouldn't be a curmudgeon and ruin their fun time by telling them how they should have fun. And also, too, there's the possibility where it's like, hey, that could be a gateway to the air quote normies. If one of those people is sharing it on their social media story or something like that, somebody might see it and be like, that looks cool. I want to come with you next time. So it is a way to connect things, but it is also very disengaging as a performer to look out in a room and just, it appears as though everyone is distracted and not really in the moment, but they are in the moment. It's just they're kind of a screen generation. This is like a lot of people are just living their lives through a camera lens nowadays. It's weird. But
I am of a differing opinion. I think it's a bad thing. It separates you from the experience.
Totally.
You lose that spontaneity. You lose that engagement. I mean, record a moment, post it on your social media later, but put the phone in your pocket.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's just I feel strongly about that.
Yeah. No, I find that like I relate to what you're saying, and I'm just I don't know. I suppose like as a person in general in my life, I'm trying to practice empathy and understanding for other people's joy.
Of course.
And but there is definitely a thing where it's like, yeah, of course, like you're not really in the moment if you're busy capturing something, and it's hard as a performer to be in the moment if you're not. It's like, I just want to see a bunch of kids pushing each other around.
Yeah.
Or not kids, like let's just, this is a human moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it does feel rather disconnecting and kind of dystopian to see a room full of people just like,
yeah.
So, this actually is kind of making me think about another question that I want to ask you in regards to being too old for the house show, aging in general. How have you personally dealt with the concept of just like aging and I guess maintaining maturity in what can sometimes feel like a rather like immature or adolescent environment? DIY is not always the most like grounded in a lot of ways, and usually for the best, but you seem like somebody that has a good head on your shoulders. You keep your shit together, but a thing that's so beautiful about this community is you meet so many people that are just like wild cards, and it can be hard to deal with it too. So what is your perspective on maturing in a immature world?
Well, I mean, Pittsburgh's a great place to be. Even before I found myself in a fortunate position where I was able to buy a house and raise kids, that was something that drew me. Like, I didn't think that would ever be me when I moved to Pittsburgh, but I knew that other punk rockers were doing it. And I knew that unlike other places I had been living, like, Bushwick, for example, it's like, they just hose it down every 5 years. You know what I mean? There's nothing, no one has any reason to stick around there. Whereas like what that means for the culture, here when we own the houses, and then, even if you get rid of us, our kids are here. That always attracted me to Pittsburgh, and it makes it a good place to age as a rocker. Um, so Pittsburgh's a good place to be as far as like, so those of you who don't know, in addition to all this other stuff, kind of my main creative hustle is I'm a violinist, and I play in this style where I play like black metal grindcore riffs on my violin, and then I stomp my feet in like the rhythm, and I kind of sing slash scream. Um, I'm the only person who does this, so like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm like, oh well, yeah, we're like getting too old, gotta let the next generation of acoustic black metal solo violinists step in. There's like, it's kind of my thing. I'm the only one that does this. I mean, there's some other cool people you should check out who do similar stuff. I don't know, Rushaticus or Monsieur Marcaille. But anyway, it's sort of my bag, so I can do what I want with it. One thing, like, finding interesting, cool, fun ways to travel, but that's also kind of a hobby of mine. I'm doing my summer tour in a 1982 diesel Mercedes. So that just, gives me that opportunity to pull over, do some grown man shit, get under the hood, turn some wrenches. Like, there's something edifying about that. And then like I mentioned, I'm being a little more selective with my gigs. I'm not, you know, earlier in my career, especially because I have this ability to play totally acoustic, and I can play really stripped down. And it's just a solo person, lean and mean, but I also can play rowdy gigs. Played a lot of house shows. I mean, I came up in the Bloomington, Indiana house show scene. The whole stomping my feet and playing violin that was made for the sound and feeling of a house. My set was really built for a house. So I'd end up playing a lot of scrappy DIY gigs, but that was also kind of a heyday for like on the tail end of MySpace. Facebook picked up some of that slack, and it was so easy to tour, when you could just like look up who made this event, who organized it, where was it. You could just like find everyone involved and spam everyone, and then they could instantly set up a gig, and there was the infrastructure to make an event, and then like 300 people would come. But that also is like, I don't know these people. Like, I would end up at, some like degenerate kid who just dropped out of college and is like trying to get evicted. It's like, now you want to play that gig. Trust me,
Yeah.
you want to play that gig. But also I have kind of, those gigs are, you can't really find them the same way. I'd have to try 10 times harder to find a gig that just fell in my lap back in the day. So now I'm being a little bit more selective. I'm not looking for the super wild show. I'm trying to find, people who make like dark folk or black metal who are, kind of into the thing I'm into.
Sure.
And so I'm building this tour differently.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it seems like you're focused a lot more on finding people that have similar intentions,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to. I mean, sure, I imagine there's something fun about playing that wild house show, but it's like, how many of those people there are going to remember you post the show? It's
Mm-hmm.
like you're in a moment and you're experiencing that. But if you're trying to, I guess, like, expand your base of people that are going to connect with you as an artist on a longer term,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to find people whose intentions are, I want to hear this cool, dark, folk, black metal, whatever type of music in there. I'm actively looking for new artists to
Mm-hmm.
engage with,
Yeah.
and different communities to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love the rowdy, inattentive, unintentional crowds, because that's informed my musical aesthetic. Because I'm like, I gotta grab these kids and I gotta hold on and not let go. It's got to be riveting. It's got to be rocking. And it's led to my music being very fast and energetic and loud, and a lot of things that it still is. But again, it goes back to that sort of technological imperative. Why were those people there? Why were they really at the show? Was it because we were building a DIY community? Was it because the organizers were bringing people together? Or was it because they got a Facebook invite and from a guy who posts like really wacky, wild party pictures. And they figured maybe if I go here, I can get some wacky, wild party pictures of my own. And then by coincidence, they have a good time. But yeah, this is when I talk about starting to be critical of what we were really building with DIY organizing. That's sort of my line of thinking.
Sure. There's definitely some people that were, they just had different, again, it's the word of the fucking day, different intentions. You know, sometimes like, or different ideas of what community is. You know, there needs to be more, at least for me, it's like the party is important, but there has to be more outside of the party. It can't just be, it's not all a rager for me. You know, they're fun, but like I make art, I think, for people that appreciate art, and I want to be able to share my music with as many people that appreciate art. And like, I personally would rather play like a much smaller, intimate show to people that are there to digest art rather than a room full of people just looking for chaos. If I had to pick one or the other, but don't get me wrong, a room full of chaos is great every now and then.
Yeah,
definitely. So, as the train comes around the station here, is there anything else that you want to let the beautiful listeners of our show today know about yourself? Anything we didn't touch on, or anything that you maybe just want to throw out randomly? Your favorite burrito toppings.
Well, you know, last year I had the honor and privilege of playing in a band as a drummer. I just had to learn the drums. I wanted to be in a shitty band, and I suck at the drums. So I was like, "This is great. I'll be in a shitty band." And like accidentally, we were kind of good, which kind of sucked, you know, because all of a sudden we had to be like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Does that make any sense?
Sure.
Like I just wanted there to be no expectation. Like I'm like, well, now the more we practice, the better we'll sound. And you know, and people are missing practice, and we're getting frustrated because people are missing practice when the whole point was we were supposed to suck. So anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to start another band soon. But yeah, June 1st, Young Nuns, which is the name of the metalcore band.
Yep.
If you didn't pick up on that already.
Yeah, I knew. Yeah.
Young Nuns is gonna be in bookstores around Pittsburgh, and any bookstore worldwide can order it through Ingram Spark. Talk to your local bookstore; they know what that is. So yeah, June 1st, look for Young Nuns and Heart of Gold. And then, yeah, sometime around November, December, look out for Year Zero. Yeah, you could look up my website, joeymolinaro.com, Instagram at violinistry, keep up with what I'm doing. I'm going to be traveling the U.S. this summer, playing gigs. Yeah, let's just, everyone, let's have a good time.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, Joey, I really appreciate you coming by. Great to catch up. I've always been like very fascinated by your hustle, your drive.
Oh, thanks.
It's really cool. And again, like you're the only person that does what you do in a lot of ways. Very much a diamond in the rough as far as I'm concerned. No, you're awesome. Great to talk with you. Great to catch up.
Nice to talk to you too, bro.
Hell yeah. And with all of that being said, that is all, folks. Thanks so much for being here. One more time, Joey Molinaro. I will be back again next week with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. Start the Beat is the podcast. Brian Sykes Howell is my name. 2025 is the year. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Take care of the people around you. Peace out. We did it. That was a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Woo. Thank you.